Hi folks, my name is Douglas Camp and welcome to the Fly Tires Bench. This is installment number 3, the Rusty Midge. I'm tying these flies and putting them on our YouTube page for my San Luis Valley chapter of Trout Unlimited. I serve on the board there, and I hope these little tricks and little flies that work well for me here on the waters of the San Luis Valley, especially the Rio Grande and the Conejos, will work well for you. So today we are in fact tying the Rusty Midge. This is a pattern that was introduced to me by a guide friend many years ago when we were winter fishing on the Conejos. It's a really simple little pattern, works great late winter and when the runoff is starting to happen. Now you can tie this on either a TMCO 200R hook or a TMCO 400. Here is the 200R. And this is the hook that we oftentimes use a much bigger size to tie a Kaufman stimulator with. You'll notice that I have already put on a small white bead. Or you can use the TMCO 400, which is the hook I'm going to demo on. It's just a little wider gap and a little bit different shape, but I still think it works really good to impose or to display some movement that the midge might be making as it floats through the water. They're pretty light as far as the wire. And as I said, I've put a brass white painted bead on the hook as an attractor than a head. Okay, let me rotate my vise up here. Get it in place. You're also going to need some thread, some rusty orange or brown colored thread. I like the rusty brown in the uni thread, which is what we have right here. And if you can find it in a size 70, the burnt orange in the ultra thread. I like this ultra thread a lot because the fibers, if you twist the thread, will spread apart and it makes a flatter surface. But today I only have the 140 size, not the 70 size, and I prefer the 70. You're also going to need some copper wire, a very small size in the ultra thread. Size small works great. Now let's begin by wrapping our thread in below this white brass bead head. We're just going to give it a number of wraps, probably at least a half dozen. Cut off the tag. And just for kicks and to give the diameter of the fly an increase, we're going to go ahead and start tying in the copper wire right at our thread wraps behind the brass bead. We get a couple of thread wraps going. I like to pull that wire away from the body of the hook. And as I wrap, I catch the wire and slide it back onto the hook. I'm going to slide this back just a little bit, get it centered a little bit more. This is so I get a nice, even, flat wrap. Now, as you wrap your bobbin around a hook with a thread, you twist that thread and make it much more round in shape or even kinked in shape. So anytime you're laying down a flat thread body, you want to stop every once in a while and spin the thread the opposite direction that you're wrapping so that the thread will unravel and lay flat on the wire of the hook. Going to wrap it almost down to the barb. Then I'm going to stop and raise the wire up and wrap past the wire just a couple of times so that when I start the wire up the thread wraps on the hook, it's easier to start it. Now I come back up, wrapping my thread towards the wire, away from the end of the fly. Spin it again, and then keep wrapping the thread forward, back on top of itself, all the way up to the bead head. Then going to wrap down again, stopping to spin the bobbin to let the thread unwind. And what I'm doing is just laying a base of thread back down on top. I'm going to go almost to the copper wire, but not all the way, and then wrap back forward again. So as we wrap bases of thread on top of this hook, each time we go backwards to the end of the fly, we're not going to go as far. And in so doing, we create a type of tapering for this little midge. By the way, this is a size 8 thread. A 6 would be much better, but just like in the ultra thread, I don't have quite the right size, so I'm going to have to just add lots of thread wraps with this size 8. Stop, spin the bobbin the opposite direction, wrap the thread back down again, maybe not quite as far, come forward. Stop, spin the bobbin, make the thread lay flat. And with the thicker thread, you will do this with about half as many thread wraps. But hey, it's good practice. Now we're getting close. So I think I have the thread wrapped around the hook shank enough that we get a gradual taper from very small to larger up to the bead head. Now I'm just going to take a moment and use my half hitch tool and tie the thread off so it's not going to go anywhere. And now we can wrap the copper wire forward. Now, since I wrapped the thread past the copper wire, you may not be able to see that, but believe me, once I've wrapped the thread past the copper wire, now I just start the thread where it's tied in. It makes an easy, seamless start. I make very small wraps as I start, and then as I go forward, I increase the width of the wraps, the distance between the wraps, to indicate larger body segments on this midge. And then I get all the way up to the brass bead and wrap it around at least twice. And now I use the thread to tie it off. I like to wrap it around twice on many of my flies because that copper wire can get caught in the fish's teeth and be pulled free, and then the fly, while still probably functional, is not as elegant. Okay, now we need to just do one other thing to emphasize the head and maybe some little crawly legs, and that is add a piece of peacock herl. Some nice, fluffy, gaudy peacock herl. So I'm going to tie it in right behind the brass bead. Wrap it around once, twice, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's looking about right to me. 7. I go about 8 times, and then I tie that peacock off with 1, 2, 3 thread wraps. Clip off the excess peacock. Take your half hitch tool and whip finish the head. Now the beauty of this fly is you can tie it really tiny, much smaller sizes than this if your eyes will let you do it, or bigger for some of the lake midges, which are quite a bit bigger in size. You can tie it in red, dark brown, green. There are lots of different applications for size and color with this pattern. And because it is simplistic and it looks like so many things midge-like that the fish eat, tying it in the different sizes, the different colors, and even with different weights of brass or tungsten head, make it an extremely versatile fly. But in this color and in this size, in late winter and early spring, it's deadly on our local rivers. This is the Rusty Midge. My name is Doug Camp. Thanks for watching the Fly Tyers Bench. Hope to see you next time.